Cavewoman sees a mirror for the first time. Sunlight filtered through the cave entrance when Alma saw something she had never imagined existed. Her fingers trembled as they touched the cold, smooth surface, and then she recoiled in fright. There, on that strange object, was another woman looking directly at her. Alma had lived her entire life on the rocky plains of the valley, where her tribe had hunted and gathered since time immemorial. She knew every stone, every river, every tree that bent in the wind. She knew the smell of rain before it fell, the sound of the bison before she saw it, the color of the sky that heralded a storm. But never, in all her 23 winters, had she seen her own face. Life in the tribe was simple and straightforward. They woke with the sun, worked until dusk, and slept when the stars filled the sky. Alma was considered skilled. Her hands worked the leather with precision, her eyes identified edible plants that others missed, and her voice calmed the children when thunder tore through the night. She knew who was who through the reflection in others' eyes, through the words they spoke to her, through her mother's touch on her hair. The object arrived with the foreigners. They were tall men, with fair skin tanned by the sun, who came from the other side of the mountains carrying extraordinary things. They brought fabric softer than any animal hide, stones that shone like fallen stars, and metal tools that cut with a precision that chipped stone could never achieve. They spoke a strange language, full of sounds that Alma's mouth could not reproduce, but their gestures were universal. They wanted to exchange. The tribe's elder, Koru, was the one who negotiated. He was wise, having lived through more winters than anyone else, and his decisions were respected. They offered bear skins, dried meat, and wild honey. In exchange, the strangers left some of their belongings. Among them was that flat thing, the size of a hand, wrapped in a soft cloth. No one knew what it was for. It was Alma who unwrapped it. She was alone in the cave, enjoying a moment of silence while the others were in the fields. Curiosity had consumed her ever since she saw the package. Carefully, she unwrapped the fabric, and when the light touched the surface, something magical happened. There she was. Or was it someone else? The woman in the object moved exactly like Alma. When she raised her hand, the other woman raised hers too. When she tilted her head, the other woman did the same. Alma's heart raced. Was it a spirit? A trap set by the strangers? She almost screamed for help, but something stopped her. Slowly, very slowly, she brought her face closer. The other woman did the same. Alma could see her eyes, brown like wet earth, with small golden flecks that caught the light. She saw her nose, a little wide, with a small scar on the left side from when she had fallen from the rocks as a child. She saw her lips, cracked by the wind and the cold, and her cheeks marked by fine lines she didn't know she had. It was her. It was her face. Alma sat heavily on the cave floor, the object still in her trembling hands. Throughout her life, she had constructed an image of herself through fragments, the distorted reflection in the still water of the lake, the vague descriptions of her mother, "You have your father's eyes," the comparisons made by other members of the tribe. But she had never seen, truly seen, the totality of her own face. It was strange and fascinating at the same time. Alma ran his fingers through her hair, watching it fall in uneven waves over her shoulders, black as a moonless night. He noticed a birthmark on her forehead that he never knew existed. He saw how her chin had a particular shape, how her eyebrows were thicker on one side than the other, how there was a small line between her eyes, the result of years of frowning against the sun. She smiled hesitantly, and the woman and the object smiled back. But it wasn't the smile Alma imagined having. It was different, more timid, with the corners of her mouth rising unevenly. She tried again, this time a wider smile, showing her teeth. One of them was chipped, something she knew, but seeing it there, so clearly, brought a strange mixture of shame and acceptance. The hours passed without Alma noticing. She explored every detail of his face as if discovering unknown territory. She observed how his expressions changed, how anger contracted his facial muscles, how sadness darkened his eyes, how joy illuminated everything. It was as if she were meeting a person for the first time, a person who had always been there, but who had remained invisible. When she heard voices approaching, Alma quickly wrapped the object in the fabric and hid it among her belongings. She didn't know why, but she felt it should remain private, at least for now. There was something deeply intimate about that discovery, something she still needed to process on her own. That night, as the tribe gathered around the campfire, Alma observed the faces around him with a new perspective. He saw how the elder Koru had deep wrinkles that told stories of laughter and worry. He saw how Tala, his best friend, had a dimple that only appeared when she smiled genuinely. He saw how Moru, the hunter, had a permanently arched eyebrow, giving him a perpetual expression of questioning. She had always seen these faces, but now she saw them differently. Because now she knew what it was like to have a face, what it was like to be seen, what it was like to exist visibly in the world. Each person there had a unique face, a specific combination of features that made them recognizable, memorable, human. Alma reflected on how her life had been lived without this self-knowledge. She had existed through others, defined by her actions, her abilities, her role in the tribe. But she had never seen herself as a complete entity, as something that occupied space in the world in such a concrete and visual way. In the following days, Alma returned to the object repeatedly. Each time she discovered something new. She observed how her face changed under different lights, soft and golden at dawn, hard and defined at midday, mysterious and somber at twilight. She saw how tiredness marked her eyes, how the cold reddened her cheeks, how the wind tousled her hair in ways she could never have imagined. But with the discovery also came disturbing questions. Alma began to wonder, was this how others saw her? Was this the face her mother caressed, the face the children looked at when she told stories, the face Tala saw when they talked? The image on the object seemed simultaneously familiar and strange, as if she were looking at someone she knew intimately and, at the same time, at a complete stranger. She wondered if she was beautiful. Before, this question had never crossed her mind. Beauty was something functional. Healthy skin meant good nutrition, strong muscles meant the ability to work, intact teeth meant youth. But now, looking at her reflection, Alma found herself trying to judge her own appearance the way she would judge someone else's. And she realized she didn't have the criteria to do so. The discovery also brought a self-awareness that hadn't existed before. Alma began to notice her gestures, her expressions. When someone spoke to her, she found herself thinking about how her face was responding, how her eyes moved, how her mouth formed words. It was as if a part of her mind was now always observing, always aware of her own visual existence. One afternoon, while working with leather near the river, Tala sat down beside him. They had been friends since childhood, had grown up together, shared secrets, and survived the harshest winters side by side. Tala looked at Alma for a long moment before speaking. "You're different," Tala said. "Something has changed." Alma hesitated. How could she explain it? How could she put into words such a profound, transformative experience? She lacked the language to describe what the object had done to her, how it had fundamentally altered her understanding of herself. "The foreigners brought something," Alma said finally. "Something that shows the faces of the people." Tala frowned in confusion. Alma made a gesture of frustration. Words weren't enough. Instead, she led Tala to the cave, to the place where she kept the object hidden. With trembling hands, she unwrapped it and held it up so Tala could see it. Tala's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She screamed, recoiling so quickly that she tripped and fell. Her eyes were wide with fear and fascination. Alma waited, holding the object firmly, letting her friend process what she was seeing. Is that you?" Tala whispered, still on the ground, her eyes fixed on the reflection. "It's me," Alma confirmed. Slowly, very slowly, Tala approached again. This time, she reached out, touching the surface with her fingertips, as if expecting the other Alma to reach her from the other side. When her fingers touched only the cold, smooth surface, she let out a sigh that was half relief, half disappointment. "Now me," Tala said, and there was an urgent plea in her voice. Alma turned the object so that Tala could see herself. Tala's expression underwent a transformation similar to the one Alma had experienced: shock, confusion, wonder, and then a kind of painful recognition. She touched her own face, comparing what she felt with what she saw. "I didn't know," Tala whispered. "I didn't know it was like this." The two women spent the afternoon exploring the object together. They took turns observing each other, studying every detail. Tala discovered she had a small wart on her neck that she had never noticed before. Baba showed her the birthmark on her forehead. They laughed at their exaggerated expressions, cried at the seriousness in their own eyes, and marveled at the complexity of their own faces. "Should we show it to the others?" Tala eventually asked. Alma pondered. The object possessed power, that was undeniable. But what kind of power? Was it a blessing or a curse? She had changed since seeing her reflection, but she couldn't determine whether for better or worse. She had gained knowledge, but she had also lost a certain innocence, a certain simplicity in how she existed in the world. "Let's ask Koru," Alma decided. The elder was in his cave, working on a new spear. When Alma and Tala approached with the object, he immediately noticed the seriousness on their faces. They explained, as best they could, what the object did. Koru listened silently, his wise eyes carefully studying them. "Show me," he finally said. Alma held the object so that he could see it. Koru stared at his reflection for a long moment. His expression didn't change, but Alma saw something shift in his eyes. A depth, a recognition, perhaps even a sadness. "I've lived through so many winters," Koru said softly, "and I never knew how age had marked my face. Now I see." He touched the deep wrinkles around his eyes, the lines that ran from his nose to his chin. "I see an old man. But I still feel young inside." He returned the object to Alma. "This is a dangerous gift," he said. "It brings knowledge, but it also brings vanity, comparison, judgment. Before, we were defined by our actions, our abilities, our character. Now we will also be defined by our appearance. Then should we destroy it?" Alma asked. Koru shook his head. "We cannot destroy knowledge once it exists. It would be like trying to forget fire after it's been discovered. But we must use this object wisely." He summoned the entire tribe to a meeting that night. The bonfire blazed, casting dancing shadows on the assembled faces. Koru explained what the foreigner's object could do. There were murmurs of fear and excitement. "Anyone who wishes may look," Koru announced. "But know that what you see will change how you see yourselves in the world. It cannot be undone." One by one, the tribe members approached. Some reactions were of joy, others of shock, others of disappointment. A young woman, who had always been considered beautiful by others, wept upon seeing her reflection, saying she wasn't as beautiful as she had imagined. A hunter with a large scar on his face smiled, saying he finally understood why the children were sometimes frightened when he approached. Alma observed each reaction, each discovery. She saw how the object revealed not only appearances, but also expectations, fears, hopes. Each person brought to that reflection their own stories, their own narratives about who they were and how they should be. Morib, the hunter whom Alma had observed the night of the campfire, spent a particularly long time staring at his reflection. He had a strong build, with a square jaw and intense eyes. But when he finally looked away, there were tears in his eyes. "I look like my father," he said simply. "He died when I was 5. I didn't remember his face. But now I see him in me. It was a moment of profound connection, a bridge between generations built through visual recognition. Alma realized that the object wasn't just about seeing oneself, but about seeing the connections between people, the lines of ancestry that ran through faces, the stories that were told through shared features. In the months that followed, the object became part of the tribe's life, but in a careful and measured way. Koru established rules. It should not be used to compare people. It should not be used to judge worth or beauty. It should not be used to feed vanity. It was a tool of knowledge, nothing more. But Alma knew that something fundamental had changed. The tribe had crossed a threshold, had acquired a kind of self-awareness that hadn't existed before. People began to adorn themselves in different ways, to arrange their hair more carefully, to cleanse their faces more attentively. It wasn't vanity, exactly, but a new form of self-respect, a recognition that they were visible beings in the world. Alma also changed. She began to pay more attention to how she presented herself to others. But, more profoundly, she developed a richer understanding of her own identity. She was not just her actions, her abilities, her role. She was also a body, a face, a physical presence that occupied space and time. One night, while gazing at the stars, Alma reflected on how her understanding of the world had expanded. Before the object, she had existed primarily in relation to others, defined by her interactions, her contributions to the tribe. But now she also existed in relation to herself, with an internal narrative that included her own image. It was liberating and imprisoning at the same time. Liberating because she now had a more complete understanding of who she was. Imprisoning because that image, once known, could not be ignored. She would always carry that awareness of her own appearance, that inner voice that commented on how she looked. Years passed. The object remained with the tribe, carefully guarded, used occasionally for significant moments, when a child reached adulthood, when someone survived a serious illness, when a person wanted to see how they had changed over the years. Alma had children, and she used the object to show them what it looked like. She saw the same progression of emotions that she had experienced: shock, fascination, acceptance. But for her children, who grew up knowing the object existed, the experience was different. Less transformative, perhaps, but also less disturbing. One day, when Alma had already lived through 40 winters, she returned to the object. Her hair now had white strands, her skin showed the marks of the sun and wind, her eyes had deep lines around them. She looked at her reflection and saw not only who she was now, but the entire path she had traveled. She saw the girl she had once been, both frightened and amazed at seeing her face for the first time.